please, a special meeting for the Pacific Grove Unified School District on July 28th. And we will begin with a roll call, please.
President Dawson.
Present.
Vice President Rivera.
Here.
Trustee Pat.
Here.
Trustee Brian Swanson.
Here.
Trustee Carolyn Swanson.
Here. Okay, thank you. We'll have an adoption of the agenda, please. Any questions or concerns?
Said move to adopt the agenda as presented. Second.
Motion to adopt this evening's agenda is made by John Paff, seconded by Dr. Frank Rivera. Roll call vote, please.
President Dawson.
Aye.
Vice President Rivera.
Aye.
Trustee Pat.
Aye. Here.
Trustee Brian Swanson.
Here,
Trustee Carolyn
I
Swanson.
mean, yes, or whatever.
Aye. Okay, did I miss public comment regarding the agenda? No. Okay,
An item on agenda.
pardon? Okay, let us next do Pledge of Allegiance, please. If you could all please stand and face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the reason for this meeting, and everybody, it's nice to see so many people here. We're here tonight to talk about the district update for our response to COVID regarding local indoor masking mandate that we had left the end of last year with it in place. So we wanted to re-examine that tonight. Can I, Dr. Porras?
Thank you, Madam President. I'll just simply start it off as I usually do with the COVID updates. So we're aware of where we are currently. As we last left off, we still have a local mandate regarding the use of masks indoors. And the threshold continues to be greater than 5% on the positivity rate across the 7-day test, which is what's happening currently with the county. And greater than 10 of the case per 100K. Currently, the numbers that we got from the county this morning, the 7-day test positivity for the county sits at 11.6, which is a drop from 15.2, which was on the 25th. The 7-day average case rate is 28.9, and previously it was 32.3. So a little bit of a drop in both categories, though obviously much greater than the threshold that was set by the board regarding the mask mandates. And a couple of the quick items in regards to progress for the beginning of the school year. We do have a couple of clinics that just got scheduled a couple hours ago. For both COVID-19 and for the flu in general. And those will be happening on Wednesday, August the 17th for the COVID-19 clinic at the high school. And then Wednesday, the 19th of October. So that's still a little ways away for just a general flu clinic. We're hoping to have a different vaccine clinic happening after the 17th, if at all possible at the high school, but we're waiting to hear back from a couple of our community partners, Safeway, Albertsons. We're both looking to help provide that support if they could, but they didn't call till literally it was like 4 o'clock in the evening. So we didn't hear back from them. So Nurse Pally is working on that one and hopefully have that in place. Finally, messages went to all of the sites and then going home through all the sites to remind families that test kits will be provided for all of the students to take prior to their first day, so they can test at home in terms of positivity for COVID. And staff will also have that available for them on a supply that we already have provided at the school sites. So that's been in place and continues to be in place for us. And outside of that, that's just the general information that I would typically provide during a COVID update. And I'll hand it back over to you.
Okay, any questions? You want to start?
Yes.
Mike?
Oh, thank you.
Brought it.
CDPH says what about schools and masks?
Currently, right now, there is no state order or order from the California Department of Public Health for a mask mandate. They are the county, as we did check when the board passed the local order. The county health has left it to local agencies to determine whether or not they wish to make more stringent requirements in regards to mask mandates. And so at that point in time, school district was authorized to, within their own jurisdiction, require masking, which is what led us to the masking mandate indoors towards the end of the school year and now. However, at this point, there is no state mandate in place. Speaking with the folks from the county earlier this morning, they're not anticipating that mandate yet, watching the numbers. We also, at this stage of the game, have heard from most of the superintendents in the county. We're not seeing any mask mandate changes from where it left off at the end of the school year in regards to implementing any mask mandates.
So as far as other districts within our county who have mask mandates, just so I'm clear what you're saying?
There are no mask mandates in any of our other
Nowhere.
districts in the Monterey County.
Okay, that's what, thank you. All right, any other questions for Dr. Porras? Okay, I'm going to go ahead then and open it up for individuals. Yes, if you're wanting to address the board. All right, so let me read this, please. Public comment on any item of interest to the public that is within the board's jurisdiction will be heard. The board will also take public comment on each specific action item. We're having tonight one action item. The board will allow a reasonable amount of time for public comment for each agenda item. We're going to give 3 minutes per speaker, please. And even though in most agendas, it's a 20-minute, there are a lot of people here and a lot of feelings and thoughts and opinions, and we want to be fair about hearing those. So just figure it will go on longer, but we're going to hold you to 3 minutes. You'll notice when you are speaking to us that a little green light will go on that says go. It'll start telling you, just like a traffic stop, yellow, you're getting ready for the red light, and then you'd be done. So I appreciate that. Speakers will come up and take their time at the mic. The meeting of the Board of Education is a business meeting conducted in public. Please know that the Brown Act limits the board's ability to respond to public comment. So the board may choose to direct items to the administration for action or place items on future agendas, but tonight we will be moving forward to make a determination as far as how we're going to move forward this year. All right. So at this time, we're going to open up for, yes, sir.
Can I donate my 3 minutes?
No, you may not, sir. We're not going to do that. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I mean, I know sometimes you see that I'll give my 3 minutes to this person and my 3 minutes. I think it confuses the issue. We'd like to hear from individuals this evening. So if you'd like to come up, that'd be lovely.
I was going to donate my time to somebody who first time. So I thought that would be more important.
No, you're just as important to us. I also want to say here as we get started, well, I'll talk about the letters a little bit later. Okay, so let's please open it up now for public opinion. That'll be in a little while, sir. We'll start with this. Thank you.
Going into PG Middle School next week. And I wanted to share some of the data that's been collected over the last 2 years regarding masking. It is, there's a lot of data out there, a lot of studies, depending on who funds it. The results are different, as you know. And what I wanted to show you was data from the New York Times provided 39 states with mask mandates against 11 states without mask mandates. And you can see that the difference really is not that different between the two in terms of cases. And one might say, well, maybe it helps a little bit, so let's do it anyway. The problem is, those of you who haven't seen this, also this is a graph created by Ian Miller from the Brownstone Institute. So the problem is that this is what happens when you put masks on people. You increase the death rate, and this is there's another study that compares also people who are masking while they are infected with the virus. You're rebreathing the viral load into your lungs, and this is what causes a lot of people to suffer from the lung phase of the disease, a lot worse. So this is pretty significant. This is nothing to be ignored. Then I wanted to show everyone too, this is two school districts in North Dakota. They decided to do an experiment, and at the beginning, they both had mask mandates in school. And then one day, one of the districts stopped the mask mandate, and look at the drop. They both dropped at the same rate. There was no difference. So I would like for the mask mandate to be dropped. I think it is very damaging for their emotional and social interaction. You all probably have heard from teachers that there's been a huge delay with the kids at school in their learning. And it's not just during the lockdowns that it happened. There's also this disconnection that's happened in school with kids with glasses, and everything fogging up on them. So we have to be cognizant of all this harm that's been done on these kids. So please reverse this mask mandate at PG. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
And I just want to. So my name is Carol Denny. I've been a teacher all my life, although not in PG school district. The email that I sent has links to two videos, and both videos have child psychiatrists talking about what they've been seeing since the lockdown and the masks. And in the first video, child psychiatrist Dr. Mark McDonald explains how the masks and the lockdowns have caused children to lose the capacity to speak and articulate. They also have lost cognitive function. In fact, the CDC has lowered the milestones of child development. So for instance, if you're supposed to be able to speak 30 words by the age of 2, now it's only by the age of 2.5 that you're expected to have 30 words. And besides this, the psychiatrists are saying the number of other problems with children going through the roof, loads of drug overdoses and deaths, anxiety, depression, suicides, and child abuse. The second video details the specifics of how the masks are working in the brain to disrupt the children's brain development. This video is from 2021. The first one was just from May 12th of this year. So at 10:50 on the timeline in the second video, Dr. Jim Meehan reveals, besides problems with his patients, one of the universities in Germany registered 26,000 incidents of children suffering from masks. Some of the neurons in the hippocampus in the brain, the area of the brain where emotional development takes place, will die very quickly from lack of oxygen to the brain, and that's caused by the mask. At 1850 in this video, Dr. Larry Palevsky explains how a child's brain develops from the hindbrain, which is the fight or fight response, through the midbrain and to the forebrain, which is the center of focus, thought, intelligence, analysis, and comprehension, and how wearing the mask disrupts this process of the brain developing from the flight or fight to the more intelligent part. And all this is on top of the fact that kids have an almost zero chance of getting and dying from COVID. In fact, Great Britain did a big study. They found like 2 kids in 1 million kids died. This is because children's bodies do not have a receptor for coronavirus. That's why they don't get it. So to put masks on a child is really abuse. And the size of the virus is so small, it goes right through the mask anyway. So besides being worthless, the masks are really harmful, especially to children. So please take the masks off the kids. Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, what's the beeping? Oh, maybe a battery?
With apologies for the.
Yeah, I hope it didn't stop you. Yeah, there we go. Oop. And thank you so much. I saw that you had so much to say and you saw the red and you stopped. That was, oh, so you kind of had a bonus. That's good, even with the beeping. And again, we apologize for that beeping.
I thought I would have an overhead projector, but I don't. So, summarize some of the things that I. Marie covered it pretty well, and I kind of stole the thunder a bit. We're both talking about some of the same stuff. I'm Gary Bailey, and I publish the Pacific Grove Press newspaper. I have a child in junior high school, and I'm concerned about the fact that the district wants to continue the mask mandate. I believe it's the information that you have is county-wide, but because of that, it's biased towards a lot of cases in the South County. And if we could get the metrics for our school, I think we should see those metrics, but I can't find them anywhere. I went to the county's website and looked at some of the data. I looked at the fatality rate by age group for the county. Oddly enough, the very first group is about 34 years worth of age, in other words, 0 to 34. They don't break it down into the 0 to 18, which they should do, so we could have a logical, coherent discussion about what we're doing here. Use some common sense. So for 0 to 34, there were 19 deaths. And this is all time, Monterey County. The next group is 35 to 44. So after that, it's 10 years, 10 years, 10 years, right? And the deaths go higher and higher. I suspect that if we could see the 0 to 18, death rate would probably be 0. That's my guess. Because as you know, kids don't suffer nearly as much as adults from COVID, and we don't exactly know why. There's a lot of studies that have been done regarding California counties. I'm going to read something from the Atlantic magazine. Comparison of counties in California that did and did not have mask mandates showed that vaccination rates were highly predictive of hospitalization, but mask mandates were not. That's from the Atlantic. Then they go on to say we reviewed a series of studies, some by the CDC itself and some cited by the CDC as evidence of masking effectiveness, and to find evidence that would justify the CDC's no end in sight mask guidance, they came up empty-handed. So I think what we need to do to make a good decision is to find out what our metrics are. And I've been unable to get that data, but you probably could if you asked for it. How do our metrics compare to the counties? Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Good evening. My name is Vince Tuminello. I'm a longtime PG resident. I'm also a former high school teacher, pre-COVID. Almost seems like another universe that long ago. Anyway, I'm retired now, and I was impressed with Gary, Carol, and Marie. Carol was particularly outstanding because she gave you flyers with all of the links to all of the information that you would find to substantiate what she had to say. I couldn't think of 3 better presentations, a little varied based on their individuality. But I also find from my research, and my degree is in science, so I have a well-formed foundation in scientific theory and so forth, that we know how we started off with this 2 years ago. Everybody was scared to death. We saw fake videos of people in Wuhan where the virus originated, falling down in the streets and so forth. And we were all, I think, with a little bit of trepidation and fear to go on in the normal way of life. And we used to wash our hands 20 times a day and couldn't go to functions. And a lot of my neighbors were ordering their food to go, from Safeway, and then wiping every box down. Remember all that? I think we've come a long way from that. And especially with these masks, we came in, you said we had to wear a mask. Look at these surgical masks. How effective do you think these really are? And some of you were wearing the 94 and the 95 masks, which are supposed to be more effective. But we're allowing people in schools and in here, I would imagine, to wear surgical masks. And we know how ineffective, guaranteed those are. But more importantly, we all heard, I'm sure, that young students are the least likely to catch the disease because their lungs haven't developed to the point of an adult, especially a senior citizen, where you'd find the most vulnerable. So the students are the least vulnerable. And if they do catch the virus, they're the least likely to suffer. I don't mean just death. I mean in the degree of their debility. So I want to go in favor of the students not being mandated to wear their masks. But if a student or a parent decides it's appropriate, then go ahead, let the kids or the teachers also wear the mask if they so desire, but just don't mandate it. As you said, it's not really mandated around many places any longer. And those schools where it wasn't mandated at all, perhaps where Gavin Newsom's children went while we were all locked down, I think they all did very well. So I'm against mandating the masks. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Hi, my name is Phil. My daughter is a student in a Peninsula School District. Her friend is a student in the PG School District. We are opposed to the school mask mandate. We're not opposed to others wearing a mask if that is their choice, but our choice is no. We've had enough of the lockdowns. We've had enough of Zoom school. We've had enough of COVID, for that matter. And while we have experienced the ill effects of this disease, the governmental and institutional response has been manipulative, tone deaf, and over the top. The threat to our children from COVID is essentially nil, which we were hearing from a number of speakers, while the educational, social, and psychological impacts are significant. Frankly, this is a trust issue. The science that was used to justify masking was flimsy and fickle at best. The number of studies concluding that masking has either no effect or detrimental effects is significant and growing. And I'll point you to the Brownstone Institute website, brownstone.org. There's 167 studies and articles on mask ineffectiveness and harms. Medical professionals who question the official narrative or offer alternative treatments are being silenced. This is both ominous and un-American. The scientific method is based on question, inquiry, and a hypothesis. When alternate views are censored, the science becomes simply political science. In conclusion, we're asking the school board to do two things. One, don't impose mask mandates that are more stringent than what the health authorities recommend. The CDPH and Monterey County Health Department only recommend mask wearing indoors in schools. Why don't you do the same? Number two, ask questions such as, State of California, what can we do to end this statewide health emergency that is approaching 900 days in duration? Or here's one for the Monterey County Health Department. In your weekly county COVID data reporting, please provide data on the impact of COVID lockdowns and isolation in our younger population, impacts like mental health, substance abuse, and suicide. You as a school board have a significant role in our community and the education of our school kids. You are the first level of elected officials in our representative form of government, a constitutional government that acknowledges the importance of local authority and limits the powers at both the state and federal levels, a form of government that is based on the consent of the governed. Please use your authority and voice to be defenders of our school kids and educational system. Don't hesitate to ask the pertinent questions. provide input on state and federal legislation, or involve parents in your decision-making process. If you do those things, you will have our trust. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for sharing.
Good evening. My name is Melissa Thomas. I live in Monterey. I'm not a mother. I'm not a full-time teacher. However, I do have experience teaching language in a foreign country. Today, I'm going to address the physical impacts of having masks put on children. This has a devastating psychological impact, and this abusive policy is having incredible negative effects on children and teens. Again, kids and teens have an intensely small risk from the coronavirus, as many here have said this evening, yet the media and those in authority have been shamelessly driving fear, stress, panic, and anxiety to the grossly negligent levels for over 2 years. This is taking a serious toll on young people, never mind some adults. Face masks for children are damaging more than just their mental health. It affects their ability to sleep. Some loneliness may come up, and self-harming behaviors are offshoots from feeling muzzled all day, every day indoors. Kids are being taught to fear each other and even the air they breathe. Prolonged fear is terror, and terror becomes trauma. I'm an adult, and I feel very uneasy looking across the sea of faceless drones, people concealing their identity. And even in this room, I don't know you, and I can't tell who's speaking. So it can make me quite uncomfortable. Aggression can increase as well when kids feel anonymous, that they're not heard and not seen. I can't imagine how they're processing all of this. Should we be surprised that suicide, depression, anxiety, alcohol and drug abuse, self-harming behavior, and despair are all on the rise with our kids? I can say that I've experienced some of that myself, and I cannot imagine being a youngster at this time. And please remember, these are our kids, and kids will become adults. And how do you want our world to be like when they become adults? We need face-to-face connection. Kids need this. We need to see smiles. They need to see their friends' smiles. And the majority of communication is nonverbal. So kids' language development is being hampered when they can't see what we're saying through our mouths. So please, I ask you to please not support the mask mandate and stop spreading fear through the mask lie.
Thank you for sharing.
Hello, my name is Steve Henderson. I am also a career educator with 22 years here in the county in many different roles, and a special educator, a special education credential. And I want to talk just a little bit about students who have special needs. And I also want to say just at the outset that I think what we all have in common here is we have the interests of our children first. I believe that that's what you're doing, is you want to protect, you want to make the best educational environment for our children. And you're in a leadership role and you have trade-offs. You have to consider different stakeholders and different trade-offs. I just want to let you know, I appreciate that you have our kids' best interests at heart, and you're in a tough position where you need to make trade-offs. And so from there, I just want to talk a little bit about special education. I want to talk about kids who have special needs around speech and language. And the masks have been very damaging to these children because we really need to be able to see what's happening around the mouth in order to make progress around speech and language issues. And so there's a real trade-off there. Maybe in the early days of the pandemic, we were worried about, we were wiping down boxes and doing these sorts of things, and we were very scared about protecting everybody. We are in a different place now, so there is a different trade-off. And the masks are, again, from the special ed point, damaging to our kids with speech and language issues. Also want to talk about kids who have a dyslexic profile, have a different need around learning how to read. Again, not quite as severe as students with speech and language issues, but what's happening here, and even this extends into the general education population, kindergarten through third grade learning to read. When we're learning to read, it's not just the phonemic awareness around seeing a symbol and a sound, but the sounds come from here. So when you really start to play around with sounds like, what am I doing here? B, all the 56 different phonemes require different movement in here. When children are in the classroom learning, they're not just hearing and seeing the symbol and the sound correspondence, they're watching what this is doing, and they're learning from the teacher and they're learning from each other. So when the masks are on the children, both with the dyslexic population, speech and language in particular, but even general ed population in kindergarten through 3rd grade, masks are damaging to our children in acquiring these really basic and fundamental and critical skills around reading. It's a trade-off there. What I am here to tell you is that I understand the trade-off to keep everyone safe and wear a mask. I'm asking you to consider now the trade-off the other way, that there is a trade-off. We are damaging, we are hurting, we are slowing the development of our students in these critical areas. So I want you to consider that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Tracy Henderson. I'm a mom of a junior in high school. I'm a licensed California attorney, and I'm the founder of California Parents United and California Parents Union. And I'm going to stay away from the facts because I see around the room a lot of people feel comfortable in masks. Where I'm going to go for you is the law. There never was a mandate. That word drives me crazy. The CDPH had to go through a rulemaking process with due process, constitutional rights to make the guidance, the K-12 recommended guidance, a mandate. Now, I empathize with you. I've worked with board members across the state of California. You were bullied by the CDPH. You were bullied by bad lawyers. You were bullied by the CTA into believing there was a mandate. Maybe you believe they work. It doesn't matter. You don't have the right legally to mandate an experimental product that the FDA has deemed emergency use authorized. That's it. Under California and federal law, it requires informed consent. I'm talking about the tests, I'm talking about the masks, and I'm talking about the jab. Unless a parent consents for a child, you can't do anything. You think the Monterey County Department of Public Health can mandate you to do that. The County Department of Health has police power by statute. Okay, the legislature gave them police power to issue orders based on necessity. There's no necessity. There was no necessity in the beginning. There were 3 cases in Carmel. They were all in Salinas, way back when. Okay, if you call the health officer on a child who's healthy, that's not wearing a mask, they will walk onto campus and have no authority. What is your role in this? Send a sick kid home. By law, that's all you can do. Please consider the law. I have a lawsuit pending in Santa Monica. Remember how the mask came off airplanes? That federal judge lifted the masks off airplanes because the CDC guidance did not go through the Administrative Procedures Act. Same thing in California. There is no mandate. There never was a mandate. And it's really simple for you. Let the parents choose. God bless you, and thank you very kindly for listening to me.
Thank you for sharing. Okay, we have some people who are online that we'll hear from now, please. And their screens, obviously.
Hi there, I'm Kylene Brissell, and I'm a former teacher in the district, and I'm now working at an independent school, and I have a son who's a rising 10th grader at the high school. He is in the SDC class, he has special needs, he has autism, he has a speech and language disorder. The masks were terrible for him. He has a hard enough time understanding people's facial expressions. Then when you throw a mask on, he cannot read people's expressions by their eyes. He had a terrible, terrible time. When the mask came off and we actually had his triennial IEP meeting, Everybody in our meeting stated how much happier he was. He was engaged so much more. He was participating. He was understanding what was going on because he could read facial expressions. He can't understand by people's voices or tone of voice, whether they are angry, sad, or happy. He really needs to see the face. So when the mask came off, he was able to do so much more. And I want him to start off this year in a positive setting where he can be engaged, where he can participate, where he feels self-confident. He struggles with, he has just daily struggles anyway, given his autism, but he works through them and he's a hard worker and he wants to please and he wants to do well. When he's constantly saying, I don't know if they're mad at me. I think they're mad at me. My teacher's mad at me. When they're not, because he cannot see their face, you are causing damage to my child. I empathize with families who have to do what's best for their child. What is best for somebody else's child is not what's best for me. So if a family wants to send their child in a mask, by all means, please do so. That is their choice. For my son, for my family, it is the wrong choice, and I need the mask to come off so my son can be an active participant in his education. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Kylie. Robin?
Thank you. Hi, I'm a parent here with a first grader and a fifth grader at Forest Grove, and I'm also a PhD scientist, and I'm a faculty member at CSUMB in the science department. Thank you for this opportunity to speak here on behalf of myself and my family today. I'm asking you to please maintain the current science-based mask policy. This policy passed by the board last April was the right choice then, and it's the right choice today. There has not been a reduction in the severity of the disease since we enacted the policy. The science that formed the basis of the policy hasn't changed, except that the newest variant is more transmissible and more immune evasive, and cases are about 3 times higher now than they were then or than the threshold we set. For PGUSD kids and their families who have medical vulnerabilities, COVID poses a serious health risk, even if they're vaccinated. And public education has to be safe and accessible to all kids. The current surge means that these vulnerable kids, more likely than not, right now, will be sharing a classroom and sharing air with kids who are COVID positive but don't yet know it. And that shared air means we all share risk and responsibility. CDPH and CDC recommend universal masking in K-12 classrooms at high community levels. And beyond that, CDC has affirmed that school districts are obliged to provide safe in-person education to all students, and they specifically state at a high COVID-19 community level, universal indoor masking in schools is recommended, and schools might need to require masking to ensure that students with immunocompromising conditions or other conditions that increase the risk for getting very sick with COVID-19 can access in-person learning. So while another speaker mentioned the legal aspect, I do think that there's a real concern with if the district were to fail to meet the legal requirement to provide safe in-person education to vulnerable children, which we do have in our district. There, along those lines, there were some inaccurate and debunked studies that were mentioned today about masks being harmful or not working. I don't have time to go through the dozen or so studies that I provided, but I provided in-depth details about these via email and a PowerPoint in my written comments that came to the board. And this was a review of the published scientific literature, not political and opinion pieces. There were several studies that showed clear reductions in in-school transmission, specifically with school mask mandates relative to without. The evidence supports that school mask mandates achieve their goal, which is to reduce in-school transmission and make the classroom safe for everyone. And the evidence is also very clear that that these harms from masks or kids are a myth, that they do not harm kids, and they are recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics for children over 2. And COVID continues to be a serious concern and one of the top 4 to 5 causes of death for children, even with the vaccination. Importantly, vulnerable children and their families can choose to avoid other high-risk settings like restaurants, but school is essential. So it's of critical importance that public schools are safe for all children, and especially for those with special needs. Masks can also help us avoid staffing shortages and missed school days and all of that disruption. In summary, please choose to honor our mission of providing every child a safe education. Vulnerable children need a public education. Mask mandates are proven to make classrooms safer. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Is there any way we can get a picture of this speaker or? Ms. Luciano?
Good evening, board and members of the community. I'm sorry, it won't let me turn my video on, so there's a nice backdrop of Pacific Grove, but My name is Christina Luciano, and I'm a first grade teacher at Forest Grove, a parent of an incoming third grader, and a parent of a high-risk child under 5 at home. Unlike a lot of people who spoke tonight, I am a parent in the district. I'm also an educator in the district, and I spent all of last year in the classroom. I was so thankful when the board instated the case-based, data-driven mask mandate last spring. It serves as a protective measure for when cases are surging in our community. The policy enacted in April mandates mask when the test positivity rate is above 5%. And as Dr. Perez just told us today, we are currently over 2 times that today. And this policy was enacted to protect students and staffs in the spring. And I'm not sure what has changed except our rising case numbers. There are other districts and colleges who are reinstating mask mandates or have mask mandates in place due to recent surges. UC Irvine, UCLA, CSUMB, Newark Public Schools, Sacramento Unified, Philadelphia City Unified, and San Diego Unified all have similar mask mandates, which with other Los Angeles districts meeting today to discuss reinstating such policies. With cases surging and the incredible transmissibility and immune evasiveness of newer variants, maintaining this mask mandate is crucial. Based on an email I received last week, PGUSD staff will be meeting virtually to maintain a, quote, high level of caution with regards to COVID. Why then are we questioning a policy that extends the same type of caution to our students and staff who will be in the classroom full time? If it's not advised for PGUSD staff to meet for an hour or so for our traditional welcome back breakfast event, how are we saying that it would be advised for 25 students and 1 to 2 staff members to be unmasked in a classroom for 6 hours a day? As a parent and staff member, I would urge you to maintain the current masking policy for the safety of our students, staff, and families. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for sharing. Hickok? Ms. Hickok?
Yes, I would like to, oh, great. I was hoping I would be able to share my screen. Thank you. My name is Emily Hickok, and my son will be entering 1st grade at Forest Grove this year. He had a wonderful year in kindergarten at Forest Grove last year, and we're so thankful to be a part of this school district. My family and I strongly support the district's masking policy that you enacted last April. It was the right policy to enact at that time, and it remains the right policy now. Based on Monterey County health data, the education setting has had more COVID cases than in any other industry sector. And with respect to outbreaks, the county's data shows that schools have had by far the vast majority of outbreaks in the county. 73% of outbreaks in the county have occurred in the school setting. So it makes sense that the most critical areas in our communities to enact a universal masking rule is in schools. And this policy is more important now than ever before. BA.5 is more contagious and more immune evasive than any other COVID variant we have seen. COVID remains a top 4 cause of death for all ages, including children. And it remains the leading cause of death for 45 to 84-year-olds. 1/4 to 1/5 of people that have COVID may develop long COVID symptoms, and children face an increased risk of diabetes after infection, damage to their cardiovascular systems, and many other potential adverse health effects. Reinfection is becoming more common. And so even if someone has had a mild reaction to an initial infection, reinfection poses new health risks. The risks related to COVID are not akin to a mere cold or the flu. The data shows that universal masking greatly reduces spread in schools. UCSF estimates that 5.6% of the population is currently infected but asymptomatic. That means 1 in every 18 PGUSD kids can be expected to come to school without any symptoms, yet will be infected and contagious. When they're sitting at their desks for up to 6 hours a day in close contact with other students, it's just not safe not to have a universal masking rule when cases are so prevalent in our community. The board's policy of requiring masks when cases are high and making them optional when cases are low represents a common sense compromise position that follows the science and balances safety with comfort. And doing so is in line with PGUSD's mission of providing a safe and equitable place to learn for all students. We hope that cases will decrease soon because we're all fatigued by this pandemic. We've all experienced losses to our personal freedom. I feel that, And I'm grieving that too, along with everyone deeply. But while we all have lost so much, the answer isn't to ignore the risks and throw caution to the wind because we're tired. We can stay the course despite our fatigue and keep our kids and families safe. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Shout, yeah. Hello.
Hi there. Good evening, board chair, members of the board. My name is Zoe Schotz. I'm a mother of 2 children at Robert Down Elementary. I'm in favor of keeping the trigger-based masking policy in place at all PGUSD schools. Less than 2 months after the state and county mask mandates expired on April 7th, your board found that adopting a trigger-based masking policy helpful in reducing the spread of COVID-19 at schools. At that time, the transmission rate was low, but your board was proactive with its approach. Allowing school sites to pivot to mandatory masking in May when transmission rates were high benefited children who may have otherwise been sick to close out the school year with their classmates. Thank you for your leadership on this issue. Since your board adopted this policy only 3 months ago in April, there has not been any updated guidance from the federal, state, or local authorities that would recommend a change in the policy. In fact, the CDC currently recommends that California counties that have a high transmission level implement universal masking in public spaces. Schools fall under the definition of public spaces. The PGUSD mission reads in part, PGUSD in partnership with the community will challenge every student by providing a quality instructional program in a positive, safe, and stimulating environment. I would argue that sending children to school indoors, unmasked when case rates are high, is not safe and can be extremely dangerous for immune-compromised individuals. During the Delta surge, schools with mandatory masking policies saw 72% fewer cases than those with partial or no masking policies. Omicron is much more transmissible and thus has increased case rates. Our goal should be to keep children in school and learning. We need to use all of the tools in our toolbox to keep our kids from getting sick and missing school. Fewer resources are coming from the federal and state programming, for example, the pooled testing that's being eliminated, and mandating masks when transmission levels are high is an easy, effective, no-cost option that can be implemented. It's really low-hanging fruit. At this point in time, the vaccinated status among younger school-age children remains very low. Only 38.5% of 5 to 11-year-olds in Monterey County have received their primary doses. I truly hope that the survey that you sent out earlier this week will not inform your decision today. The survey was incredibly flawed. The question that was asked did not explain the policy at all. Many parents may have been misled by that wording. The survey was not translated into Spanish. The questions were, but the answers were not. Also, the email that explained the survey was not in Spanish. There's many people that weren't served by this survey. Many important stakeholders, families of incoming TK and kindergarteners were not surveyed. And there were also parents that did not get the survey. My husband himself did not get a survey. He does get PGUSD texts and emails. And lastly, the survey allows for multiple submissions per person and submission by anyone inside or outside of the school district. I urge you to listen to the affected parents and students that you heard on the call today and teachers, and not random members of the public on this issue. This matter does not affect them. We are the ones that are being affected. We are the ones that are sending our children to school every day indoors. I urge you to keep this mask policy in place for the duration of the school year. Should your board wish to loosen the masking regulations, please consider alternatives such as removing them from 12 to 17-year-olds that have a higher percentage of vaccination and can wear N95 masks. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for sharing. Sarah?
Hello. In this district, we have many vulnerable students with underlying health issues like diabetes, asthma. There are parents in our district currently with cancer and other immunocompromised issues. During the higher spread of COVID, we should require masks. The district policy set in April is reasonable and appropriate, and it helps reduce absences in schools. In our current state, we have a shortage of substitute teachers, as I know many people are aware of. I loved what Robin said when she said, in this, we have a shared risk and a shared responsibility. And I'm asking you to maintain this policy because it's not a permanent mask requirement. It's a requirement during times of higher transmission. We really are all in this together when we send our kids back to school. And we know the data shows that when we're all wearing masks, especially during these higher times of transmission, and with this new BA.5 variant, when they're all wearing them, the reduced spread is there. One of my children has asthma and can breathe perfectly fine in a KN95 mask. And we are asking you to be conscientious like you have been. We're very proud of this district for this policy. And again, we very much appreciate it. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for sharing. Quentin?
Hi, my name is Erin Drake Fryer. I'm a parent of a child attending preschool in Pacific Grove, and I'm also a volunteer parent teacher. I would like us to begin the school year with COVID testing and masking until we have better data on the current COVID spread within our community. I have encountered many families over the summer that have contracted COVID and have not reported to any agencies as they've relied on home rapid tests. Because of this, I believe the numbers are skewed and unreliable. My family helps to care for my father, a Navy veteran who currently awaits a transplant. Positive COVID test in our family could jeopardize his chance at getting that precious gift. While many of us breathed a sigh of relief when we found out our youngest population could be vaccinated, there are still many parents that are choosing not to vaccinate their children and are suspicious of the vaccine. Whether you agree or disagree with parents who choose not to vaccinate their children, these unvaccinated children still need to be protected. Also, keep in mind when the school year starts, there are many small children that have not been vaccinated and are exposed to COVID through their older siblings that attend schools within PGUSD. It's easy to see how an older sibling with COVID can pass COVID on to a preschool sibling who then passes it on to their classmates. We all know preschoolers have difficulty with personal boundaries, and COVID can easily spread within the preschool environment. With San Francisco declaring a state of emergency with an uptick of monkeypox cases yesterday and conflicting masking guidance between the CDC and the WHO about whether monkeypox can be transmitted through respiratory droplets, I would say we should err on the side of caution and continue masking until we see how monkeypox and COVID shakes out in our community this fall. Masking is an easy and effective strategy to protect our children, teachers, and district employees, as well as families with newborns and immune compromised family members. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Daniel?
Hello. This amazes me actually how we've gotten to the point where we're basically pitting people against each other on this issue. This should be, a previous speaker said that the largest percentage of people getting COVID is in educational settings. I believe I heard that correctly, which if that's the case, and up until now, basically everybody's had to have masks in almost every educational setting, I'm not understanding why that seems to be the main place that people are getting COVID. That is counterintuitive to what is being stated, that somehow it protects you to wear a mask for 6 hours at school. I got 3 kids in school and I have a wife who's a teacher. She's a teacher at PGUSD, and so far they are doing absolutely nothing this next year involved with COVID. They're not mandated, there's no mask mandate, there's no hygiene thing, there's no separation of classes, there is nothing. So why Pacific Grove seems to be an outlier as to, especially in this county, when we've always had low numbers, why all of a sudden we need to be back to wearing masks. The current cases show that they're less as far as impact on people, especially if you've had vaccines, which all my kids have, or you wear masks, which my kids did when they went through school. In fact, getting them to stop wearing masks was really difficult. I had a daughter that played on the tennis team at the middle school that felt the need to wear a mask all the way up to the end of the school year when she was even playing tennis. You know, that's how warped it had gotten for them, and how the mandates just affect the psychology of children that are developing. And it just needs to stop. If you have an immune compromised child, if I did, they would not be going to school. They would not be around people. But where does this end? And it was just brought up monkeypox. Now we're going to have to worry about monkeypox. So as every year it's going to be about the flu, or it's going to be, oh, there's a lot of people, kids with colds. You know, where do we draw the line as to mandating what my kids can do? And it's funny how many people say, you know, my life, my body, my choice. But then those same people will turn around and be so emphatic about all the rest of us having to wear masks. And at some point in time, it has to be decided that we are people that make our own decisions and allow that to happen. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for sharing. First name, I'll go with the first name, Garrett. Thank you.
Hi, thank you, board, for considering this. I do want to say that, you know, when this policy was put in place before, I thought this was very common sense, and I appreciated that the board took this step to help protect our children. I have 2 children in the school district at Forest Grove. I'm also an educator. I teach at CSU Monterey Bay. And while I appreciate the concerns and understand the concerns of a lot of people who maybe want to reduce the use of masks, I do think this is common sense to really be as inclusive as possible for as many people to get a solid education as possible. With my own students, I see this a lot. People are missing school days and they're not learning when they're out. There's reduced participation in the classroom, and for some students, there's anxiety present. And for many of those students, I find the masks help with the anxiety, and you know, certainly there's plenty of proof that shows that these masks do help reduce transmission. So that's going to only increase the participation of students in the classroom. So I do want to say that I support this, and I hope that we continue with the policy as stated. Thank you.
Thank you. Tanya, please.
Hi, this is Tanya Fadum. I teach kindergarten, or well, I teach TK this coming year at Forest Grove, and I'm also in support of the responsive policy. As a teacher, I felt really supported by the board when this policy came into place, and I experienced having COVID in my own personal home, and it was really, really impossible to get a sub for these long stretches of time, which I know isn't why we're having this policy, but it is a factor as teachers are asked to be in the classroom. It helps all of us keep safe. It helps students stay in the classroom, and it helps teachers be able to come and do their job day in and day out in a safe way. And I think it's really a good policy that's responsive to things. So I'm in favor of it and wanted to share that.
Thank you for sharing. Next speaker.
Hello, my name's Al. I would like to just voice my support for the mask mandate and my appreciation for its inaction. I think it's a common sense policy. I'm not going to reiterate everything that was said in support of it. There are very good arguments for it. I have 2 children in Pacific Grove School District at Robert Down. They have no problem wearing masks. One of them is actually even in speech therapy, has had no problem undergoing his speech therapy classes wearing masks. It hasn't been an inconvenience. What has been an inconvenience is anxiety surrounding getting sick, and the study showing the dangers of reinfection and lasting effects of COVID, regardless of severity of symptoms or hospitalization or even asymptomatic cases. I would just, again, like to extend my thanks for the common sense policy, and I would like to voice my opinion and keep it in place. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for sharing. Ms. Selfridge.
Hi, thank you very much. I am a teacher in the district. I'm a teacher at the high school and a parent with students at both the middle school and the high school. And I would like to request that you change the masking policy from a mandate to a choice. I feel strongly that it is the parents and the higher grades, at the higher grades, the students themselves rights to choose whether they wear a mask. As a teacher, I've seen students regress not only academically, but socially and emotionally as well. And it's there that I am very concerned. I've seen, there were several earlier speakers who had mentioned concerns over depression. I've seen that in the classroom. I've seen that throughout the school, and it does concern me. And their ability to interact with one another has suffered. Their understanding of social cues is stunted. Their interest in volunteering answers in class and contributions to discussions has waned. I'm seeing them, especially at the older middle school and high school levels, I'm seeing them turn more and more consistently to social media as the way that they interact with one another. And that really concerns me. And I understand many of the speakers' earlier comments about student anxiety and about getting sick as well. But I often wonder, and I don't have any data to back this up, but I am concerned that we as parents are perhaps contributing to that in some ways. I completely support anyone's choice to wear a mask, but I do not support a mandate that requires all students and district staff to wear masks. The decision should be a personal choice for individuals to make for themselves. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Elliot, please.
Thank you, PGUSD Board of Trustees, administrators, and most importantly, the community here tonight. I am extremely thankful for the deliberation and thoughtfulness on many of the difficult decisions you have had to take regarding our district's response to COVID over the past 2 years, particularly given the range of emotions surrounding this issue, as we have heard tonight. The one point that I just cannot depart from is that I urge you to continue taking a data and science-driven approach towards how best to address COVID in our classrooms this year. In many ways, the question depends on whether our country and community is still in a pandemic or whether COVID has become endemic. And there are people that are much smarter and much more educated on this topic than me weighing in. Thank you again for all that you've done to address the challenges brought about with COVID, and thank you for the difficult decision we'll be making tonight. I commend you for continuing to do whatever you can to keep our children safe, both in the classroom and at home, when they have had to stay home, while continuing to enabling them to receive as excellent an education as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing. Katie? Oops, wrong name. Okay. Is there a last name? Annie Goni?
Hello.
Oh, there we go. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Hello, my name is Katie Anagoni. I have 2 daughters, one in 6th grade, one in 8th grade. My son graduated in 2019. I am for the mask mandate. Both my daughters have no problem wearing a mask. One is immunocompromised and one is not, and they have no problem doing so. And I just wanted to put forth that our family is for that. And that's all I'd like to say. And I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you.
Thank you. Carrie? Ms. Serpa?
Oh, I'm trying.
Am
Oh,
I
there you
on
go.
now?
We
Okay.
can hear you.
Hi, Carrie Serpa. I support the mask mandate, as you know, when cases are in the high threshold as a parent and as a teacher. I won't reiterate all the science mentioned here tonight, but I do want to point out that 4 of the folks who spoke right out of the gate did not mention having children in our school district. And while I think they're entitled to their opinion, I don't think you should be taking that opinion into consideration for this PGUSD matter tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Okay, device name user.
Yeah, I apologize. I couldn't figure out how to put my name there. My name is Michael Courtney. I have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, one going to Robert Down, one at preschool here in Pacific Grove. I really don't want my children to wear masks, but I do want them to be safe, and not only them, but their grandmother, for example, the rest of the family, their other extended family. When there are no symptoms in some of these children, that's terrific. They're not feeling ill. Other ones are. I've seen children and their friends catch this recent variant that was very harsh, even for 2 and 3-year-olds. And I agree with the previous speaker that seeing people get up here to speak that don't even have children or don't have data or experiences with children in the school district, it's this summer there's been high transmission rates in Pacific Grove in simple classes or swimming courses here. This current variant is very transmissible. I am not someone that wants a mask mandate, however. I'm someone that simply wants to play it safe when the numbers are high. And I'm not sure if we can even change things according to the data based on ages as well, because I also think older children should be able to choose for themselves, especially when they are so much stronger than younger children, like my children. I suppose I need to take a stance, and mine would be for mask mandates when the numbers are high. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Marcella?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Hi, my name is Marcela Olate. I am a mom of a 2nd grader and an incoming kindergartner for Forest Grove. I just wanted to voice my support for the mask mandate. Let's just continue the science approach on this issue. Let's continue to keep our kids safe, our family, our community safe. Yes, we have choices, but you have to rethink your choices when my choices affect the health of others and other extended family. And just thank you so much. And I know it's a hard decision for the board, but just keep in mind the science and just to keep our community safe. And thank you so much.
But I couldn't stand hearing these people that don't even have children there because they're political.
Where's that voice? Thank you so much.
The truth is, though, after having it,
Who are we picking up? Okay. Lisa, please.
District. I teach special education at the high school. Very much of my
Lisa, we're having trouble with your
student-
audio.
You hear me?
That was better. Try again, please.
Hear me?
Yeah, unfortunately, you're breaking up.
No.
Hmm.
Can you hear me now?
Well, go ahead and start and we'll find out if it's still so spotty.
Okay. I have Wi-Fi, so I don't know why it's spotty. But I'm a teacher. I teach special education at the high school. And this is very much out of my comfort zone. So words, or I say something that doesn't make sense, but I tell my students they can do things. And so I am going to live by started because not to slow. And the reason.
Yeah, we can't do this. I'm
For
sorry.
example,
we're only hearing one out of every 3 or 4 words. So probably everybody's happy because we could interpret your response in any way we choose, but we can't really hear what you're saying, unfortunately. Yeah, maybe call back. Oh my goodness. Okay, everyone online, anybody back in the room that we missed, sir? Okay, we'll go back. Thank you.
We're going to go here.
Yeah,
Okay.
you go ahead, sir.
Good evening, Dr. Porras and members of the board. My name is Francis Cohn, and all 3 of my children have attended PG schools since kindergarten. So I am speaking as a parent of Pacific Grove. Please do not require our children to wear masks at school. The California Department of Health does not require it. And the vast majority of parents and students that I know and have talked to do not want a mandate. Give people the freedom to choose. My daughter Caroline graduated in 2021. She and her classmates effectively lost their entire senior year to online schooling. Even now, a year after finishing her freshman year of college on the East Coast, she breaks down in tears thinking about the high school experiences she lost and can never regain. Few of her college classmates faced anything near the schooling losses she and her PGUSD classmates suffered. Yet their state's COVID outcomes, where students attended school in person all year without masks, were no worse than our state's. Masking and online schooling did nothing but damage our children, our communities, and our economy. My son William and his classmates will be seniors this year. His freshman, sophomore, and junior years were all impacted by COVID restrictions. He will never get those years back. He will never get back the multiple seasons of athletics, cross country, track and field, and soccer that were canceled. He will never get back the marching band season that was canceled. That may sound melodramatic to some, but not to me and the majority of other parents in our district. A material portion of William's teenage years have effectively been lost. Please don't take away more. Masking and online schooling did nothing but damage our children, our community, and our economy. My son Thomas, that's right, I have 3 kids in the district. He'll be a sophomore this fall. Don't make him and his classmates suffer like his older siblings. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. Is one more online? Okay, Ms. Martinez?
Hi, this is actually Alberto Martinez. I'm using my wife's account.
Oh, okay, thank you.
My child was a student in Pacific Grove, and we pulled him out last year due to COVID and just the mandate going away. We feel that we would love our child to go back to school, but it's just not safe. And we had him in camp during the summer, where on the very first day, they had a notice going home that someone had it. The next day, we received 2 notices, and it just built up so that by the time camp ended, they were mandating that they wear their masks indoors. Now, there's a lot of people out there, or at the beginning, there were people who were speaking who don't have their kids in the district. And in the past, we've seen where people come from outside the district to push their agenda. And I'm not saying that they have an agenda, but I think we need to look at everything. If people present diagrams or any kind of charts, there's equal amounts on the other side. So I would like to see that you guys play it safe and keep the kids safe, and most of all, also keep the teachers safe. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Lisa, please.
Now, okay?
There you go. It sounds
Okay, I
good
had
so
my
far.
Zoom
Oh, no.
update.
I agree.
So I am a special education teacher. Is it bad again?
Keep going.
Okay. I'm an education teacher at the very much outside of my comfort zone. So if I stumble over my words, please tell my students that they can do hard things and they can be brave. So I'm energy myself right now. When asking, we were told that it wasn't to stop the COVID, but to slow the curve. We were asking and social distancing were important to keep ourselves and others safe. Cloth masks help others, not ourselves. We were told that it's important to mask to keep others safe. And now we know, we were told to wear masks to keep ourselves safe. And now that and a KN95 or a surgical grade mask will keep ourselves safe. We were told to mask because the hospitals were overwhelmed and they couldn't handle all of the patients, especially those patients in condition who needed breathing support, ICU. Hospitals are no longer being overwhelmed. Doctor COVID effect, and I'm just going to say the same thing. So how what to do? Doctors know what to do. Now, I have firsthand how students with special education needs, students who are English language learners, how they to communicate, to hear using a mask. I agree there are other, and you as the board, you have a really hard decision because what I'm hearing is there are who need masks off in order to move forward in their education. And there are a population of immunocompromised students or who have family members who are immunocompromised. Keep that KN90 are strong enough. One who wants to continue wearing a mask, and personally, if anyone right away. To support things that make masks optional and not required. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think we got most of it, and we got the comment at the end. Would you like to speak here? Any other online? Okay, perfect. Please. Pardon.
Okay. Good evening, Dr. Porras and members of the board. My name is Michelle Ford, and I have been a parent of 3 students and an active volunteer in the Pacific Grove Unified School District for 19 years. It is hard to believe that we are entering the 4th school year adversely affected by COVID. This year's senior class, the class of 2023, stands a chance of not experiencing a single year of high school free of the disruptions of COVID. I am pro-vaccine and pro-booster. I simultaneously favor lifting the mask mandate in our schools. Multiple publications across the political spectrum, both conservative and liberal, have called for the lifting of mask mandates in our schools. This article from The Atlantic, entitled "The Case Against Masks at School," was written by 3 medical professionals in late January 2022. National Public Radio interviewed Dr. Jean Noble, who directs COVID response for the emergency department at UCSF. Dr. Noble is part of a coalition that supports vaccines and opposes mask mandates. She states, and I quote, "Kids don't need to be masked, full stop," end quote. For 2.5 years, we have lived cautiously and patiently while multiple layers of safeguard and protection were developed and put in place. No one will stand in the way of one who wishes to mask. Please do not stand in the way of those who wish no longer to mask. Lift the mask mandate.
Thank you for sharing. Okay, we're done over there and in the room as well. I'm thinking, oh, one more, please. I also, at this time, I want to thank everybody for really adhering to the limits, and it's good. Thank you.
My name is Jen Jessica. I have two children in the district. I have a 7th grader and an incoming 5th grader. I wasn't going to speak. I wrote a letter to the board members. Hopefully you all were able to read that. But I just really want to go back to what Dr. Porras said at the very beginning of this. He let the board know that there is not another district in our county and probably in the surrounding counties that has a mask mandate. So I ask, why do we have a mask mandate? If we're following the science, I would hope that the other districts that are much larger than this district would be following that science. But all of these other districts have made a choice to let it be optional. I'm also a teacher of 15 years. I had the pleasure of teaching during this pandemic. And it was really hard last year because I worked in a different district when the mandate came back into Pacific Grove. And I knew that I got to go to school and did not have to wear a mask. My students did not have to wear a mask. But I had to make my children wear a mask to come to school. They don't like wearing a mask. I understand that there is children that have zero issue wearing a mask, and that is great for that family, but not all families and children feel that way. So I really think it's important that we give an option to these families and to the staff. It was a staff member that reached out to me that wanted me to, support, get rid of the mask mandate. So there are staff members who are against it, like we've heard. So everyone should have a personal and family decision on this. If you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. If you don't, you don't. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Serena, please.
I think that.
Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay. Hello, I am Serena Bergsma, and I go to Forest Grove. So I have zero problem wearing masks, and I think maybe people just don't have comfortable masks, but I think that they could find one that they're comfortable in. It makes some people nervous and uneasy to see people inside with them not wearing masks. And yeah, I think we should keep masks.
Thank you for sharing. Erin?
Hi, this is actually Cheyenne. I'm also using my husband's Zoom account. I have 2 children going to Robert Down this fall, and I really just wanted to question the metric that we are using and whether the prevalence of cases is really the best metric to be looking at when the hospitalizations and the ICU admittance recently has been as low as it has been. We're not seeing the same severity. The vaccines are widely available and very effective. They're not as effective at preventing cases, which is what we're seeing. There's a lot of breakthrough cases, but they're much milder. And I just would hope that the policies that we put in place really reflect the actual the current level of risk. We're not, back in early 2020 where there was so much uncertainty and we really felt like we were saving lives. But, the current just actual severity of what's happening and the threat to the community has been brought so much lower by both, new drugs that have been available, even if you're not hospitalized. There are great treatments available, as well as, of course, the vaccines. And so I hope that we would be taking that into account.
Thank you for sharing. You've said that a few times tonight, the signal that it's over, but you're toying with me. Okay, we're gonna call it now. Let's make it official. All right. Oh, whoa. The 3 minutes we almost gave away.
I
Did you-
really wasn't gonna say anything because I don't have any children, so I don't know if that makes me qualified to say anything. But
Go
I
ahead,
do
you
live
got
in
3
this
minutes.
town, and I am an American, and I am a combat vet from Vietnam. And I'm also somebody that was sprayed with Agent Orange. And for 40 years, the government, our health department, every one of these health officials told us there was nothing wrong with Agent Orange. Okay? And we have no bad effects for it. And then we found out it was all a lie. My concern is that we have no idea what this medication is going to be doing to our kids, your kids, the children. And we keep going on. They keep changing their mind, saying this, one day it's this, one day it's that. We don't know. Personally, I live right down the street on Hillcrest Avenue. Ever since I've been there, I'm outside working on my motorcycles, working on some wood projects, doing this, doing that. Always had kids stop by and say, hey, what's going on? You know, and I talked to them about the motorcycles. I talked to them about this, and I talked about school. And I'd say, hey, every time I saw somebody with an instrument, I say, wow, congratulations, stay with it. I got away from it when I was a kid. I wish I would have done it. Last couple of years, the kids were afraid to stop. They've got their masks on. They're walking by, they're running across the street, you know? And I'm going, holy mackerel, it's okay, take it easy. But you can see the fear in their face. This is what we're doing, you know? Survival in the streets, in this, any place, is knowing what you see on the face. You see how somebody's reacting. When you have this mask, as you know, we all know this stuff. All you have to do is take a walk out in the street, go down to the bike path where you see people running away from each other. Okay, we used to engage. Now these young kids are being raised, they have no idea how to engage. They've got radios on, right? They got telephones on, and then they're afraid. They got the big mask on. Some guys go out of work, they put a mask on, they put a hood over there, and they got a hoodie over there. They're dressing up, you know. We are going to be in trouble. And I feel very sorry for the young kids. Please, let's be reasonable. Let's pay attention to what the other people are doing. Get rid of the mask. If you really want to wear a mask, wear a mask. Okay? If you want to be a dancer, be a dancer. But let's not force it on them. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Sarah Cocker. I am wondering, why do I have to wear a face covering that my governor will not wear, that my friends they don't have a choice if they want to wear it or not? Thank you.
Okay, I think it's appropriate. We end with a young person. Here we go. All right. So what we're going to do right now, Dr. Poor, should we spend any, do you want to take a break for real quick? As I say, you look at the watch. No? Okay, let's move forward. Do we want to discuss the survey, give a brief overview of how that was? I mean, I know we reached out to parents, and my understanding it came back pretty much 50-50. I mean, people have pointed out that the survey is not as airtight as they would have liked, and had the possibility of, I mean, we didn't count on people voting multiple times, but would you like to comment about that?
Happy to do so, Madam President. Just did send the results to the board so you can review those as well. I mean, cutting to the chase as you just did, the last graphic that dealt with the 816 responses that we received ended up with 49.8% of the surveyed saying that no, we should not continue with the mandate, and 50.2% said yes. So 49.8 and 50.2. So there's very little difference.
Very little.
In terms of the differential. So take that as you will. And then there was further breakdown in terms of response. And there were, give me a second, I just had this written down, I just lost it. About 190 staff members that responded and 673 parents. I will say that some of the staff members, I didn't go too much farther beyond that, but there were some staff members who were also parents in that mix.
Gotcha.
So the responses from the various school sites, for those who indicated themselves as parents, actually the numbers were pretty even across the school sites. Forest Grove came in with 204 participants. Robert Down at 217 participants, the middle school at 212, and the high school at 222.
Wow.
Community high school came in with 4, which is pretty good for community high school.
Yes.
And then the adult school, which included preschool, that we did get a survey. We did find, we did hear that they had not received it and resent it and confirmed that a number of parents did receive it.
Good.
Were 29.
Okay.
So that's generally the numbers. I think just in terms of reading it again, with everything that everyone indicated in regards to survey, as we sent it out, the intention was to just get a general idea of how people are feeling. It wasn't intended as a vote per se for the board. But again, 49.8 for no and 50.2 for yes.
Okay, thank you so much for talking about that. What I'd like to do right now, please, is we'll start talking about board comments and then make a determination about how we want to proceed. I'm going to start right now with Ray Avila. You can't see him. He's our student rep. He's invisible at the end of the table. He's in the Azores on a family vacation. So he asked that I share this, please. Dear school board members, I'm sorry for not being in attendance at the special meeting as I am out of the country with my family. While I cannot speak for the student body as a whole, I can speak for myself and many other students, staff, and parents. The possible mask mandate would have more negative effects than positive for the following reasons. The only way masks have been proven to help is when they are worn correctly. Around campus, very few effective masks, the N95s, have been seen. The majority of students I have seen wearing masks do not use them properly, which defeats the point of wearing them in the first place. Masks create a disconnect in the classroom, which creates a more difficult learning environment. Teachers spend valuable class time managing masks instead of teaching. Similar problems arise from music, sports, theater, and other extracurriculars. In the classroom, at sporting events, theater performances, band concerts, and school dances, there is a sense of distance from peers. This distance makes it very hard to promote the sense of community and togetherness that Pacific Grove has always been known for. Even without a proper mandate, there will still be many students wearing masks. Each person should make their own choice based on their own personal factors. Thank you for considering these tough issues. I know it will be hard to please everyone, but that is why each person should be given the freedom to make their own decision. I look forward to working with you all this upcoming school year. Sincerely, Ray Avila, class of 2023 ASB president. So that's from Ray. Okay, I think we'll continue on. Trustee Carolyn, can you share your thoughts at this time, please?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Christy. And thank you to every person who emailed. I counted about 51 emails that came in. 27 of them were for the mandate, 24 were against. So again, roughly 50-50 split. It's a decision that we're taking very seriously tonight. So I appreciate all of you for being here and submitting all of your comments, whether it be virtually or in person. And I also wanted to just say thank you to the families for the patience with the survey, because there were multiple responses that were possible. And anyways, here we are tonight discussing this. And so my comments related to how I feel about the mask mandate is that we can all agree that it's best for our students to be in schools, that schools be open, and that the kids be in the classrooms, and that the teachers be in the classrooms. Last year, we struggled to find a balance with our short-staffedness. We had at one point multiple classes being taught in the library because we were so short-staffed on subs. So we had one certificated librarian teaching multiple classes. In order to balance our resources and keep schools open, I am in support of a mask mandate when cases are high.
and I'm in support of an indoor mask mandate when cases are high. We cannot ignore that COVID still exists. We have a rule, a mandate that anyone who has symptoms who test positive has to be out minimum of 5 days. And that translates to staff as well, not just students. So when I think about when my daughter was in preschool, her bus driver was the bus driver, the mechanic, and also the dispatcher. We have a unique district. We have a small district. We have roughly 850 students. We have staff that wears multiple hats. When we lose one staff member, we can lose multiple positions when they're out. And we all know that our students are safest when our schools are fully staffed. Safety has always been a priority of mine. No one's going to be surprised about that. That's how I ran my campaign, that safety comes first for our kids. So the masking is part of a multi-component strategy. We're also we're continuing, I should say, our strategy for ventilation, where we have our windows open, our doors open. Dr. Portas or Song, can you talk about if we're going to be tracking CO2 levels again, or if we're just going to remain working with those current data sets that we had done prior? Are we going to be increasing any ventilation this year?
I can tell you that we are, our first step was to make sure all the systems are working, all the filters are in place, all that has been taken care of. Our new facilities director and the current staff have done a good job with that. We will be working with the County Office of Education in some of the gas metering, the CO2 levels, carbon monoxide, that kind of thing. Probably sometime in the late September range. And the reason I say that is our incoming assistant superintendent, Josh Yorn, who works at the Monterey County Office of Education, currently does a lot of work with that countywide. So are hoping that we may be able to take advantage of some of the connections he has to increase that. It's not a guarantee, that's a hope. So,
okay, and not before the school year begins.
no, it wouldn't be possible at this point.
Thank you. I do agree with, one of the callers in saying that vulnerable children and families, they can choose to avoid every other high risk setting. They can choose to avoid dining out. They can choose to avoid traveling if they need to, but school is essential. We all know that, that for for mental health and development, the best place for our kids is in schools. And I see this mask mandate only when cases are high, like they are now, and only indoors, being the way to keep the kids in school and the staff in school and fully staffed schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Frank?
So the mandate as it sits does not apply to the high school, only the lower schools indoors. I just want to reiterate.
No.
Oh, in the high schools is everywhere. Okay, I thought we had the, will we?
It's our schools, it's our school buildings, it's anywhere. Yeah.
Here, us, right now.
Okay. This is, the good news is, if you're wanting to, yeah, here's the good news. If you're wanting to represent your community, no matter which way you vote, you're gonna satisfy half of them and not. So we could be happy with that. This is really, really, really tough. And I'm thinking, actually, I was sitting here thinking exactly as what Trustee Carolyn was stating is, if we look at it from not even a public health point of view, but keeping our kids in school, anytime someone gets sick, even if it's just a minor sniffle, they have to be out a minimum of 5 days. And so do our faculty and staff. And that's the biggest kicker. That's what I'm stuck on right now, because that, as she mentioned as well, we are short-staffed, and there's not enough subs around. There really isn't. I go back and I think, okay, why did we do this back in the spring? because we're revisiting it. And I think the reason why we're revisiting it is because the surrounding districts have chosen not to do this. But if I go back to what we're doing, what we did back then, it's 3 times as high as it was back then. So I'm just thinking out loud right here. I'm not trying to make the case from one side or the other. These are all these things that have been pouring through my mind all night. So I would just like to hear from the rest of you. I'm really concerned. My number one concern is obviously our high risk. I really, they deserve to show up to school in a safe environment. And I'm also very concerned with our low staff and subs and keeping kids in school. But that's just my thoughts right now, but I certainly want to hear from my esteemed colleagues.
Okay. It's your path.
Yeah, in fact, why are we revisiting? Things have changed. Things are not the same as they were in the spring. At this point in time, everybody can get a vaccine from age 6 months on up. That is a significant change. That is non-trivial. Caseload and hospitalization is way down, is not where we were in March of 2020. We're going into the hospital and having breathing problems, and there was no out. So we're in a much better place overall. We don't have any change in the CDPH guidance. Okay, so, we work with what we have. For me, the evidence is in, we are not pandemic, we are in endemic. We need to live with this, which also means that we need to take off some of the things that we said, we're going to do this to protect at the lowest possible levels and come back up that asymptote a little bit and work with, work with a wider range. The trade has been masking versus emotional and site cues. And I think we need to make that trade in the other direction. We need to go and be able to see what we're saying and see the expressions. There has been a learning loss, there's no doubt. And some of that learning loss is, it's going to come back, and particularly in the lower grades, I have no worries. But we do have to start being able to use it. So the special ed teachers who said, well, we need to take off masks so that we can continue to teach. This is true across. This is true in every grade. There's no question about it. We've given that attention to safety, but definitely things have changed. We look at the rates that we saw today, 11.6 in the county, and then things. One of the other things that changed, the day we put this in, we said we will deal with PG, city of PG. We had the data. That granularity was lost by May. That alone is a signal, right? That someone has said, look, this is not something that we can look at across the city. We have to look at it in a broader spectrum, and we can't get the granularity we want. If we look at the cases in Pacific Road and we try and delve down, it is a much smaller number. It is on the county website, divide by 3, you get a number that is roughly how many at any given time. It is not a high number. It puts maybe 4 people in the district. I look at various counties. I've been watching a half a dozen counties across the country on a regular basis. Ulster County, New York, Orange County, New York, went up, big spike, come down. Guess what? They've not changed. They've not put masks back in. I look at Miami because they have a governor who's actively trying to kill people as best I can tell. You know what? It's gone up, it's gone down. I look at Marin County because the doctor there, Tom, he's very, very good. He's put out some stuff that is very smart and very things, and they've gone up and they were very flat, and then they spiked and they've come back down. We're not stopping. We did what we needed to do in 2020. We actually did flatten the curve. We actually made it so people weren't going to, if you went forward, you made it so you weren't going to die from this. We were putting in things place so that people were going to continue to live. And we have 1 million people dead from it nonetheless. I won't get into that, but the truth is we are past that. We have an endemic disease. I'm ready to take this off. We've had somebody say, well, masks, without masks is anxiety inducing. Wow. I mean, that's a really tough statement that when you go in and you see somebody without a mask, now that's exactly backwards. People ask why and when do I wear one? Well, I just say I have tuberculosis and that's that, so don't worry about it. But we get into this position, you know, if I want to wear one, I can wear one. If I don't, in a movie theater, I'm sitting in a small spot, I'll wear a mask. Almost every other situation, particularly outdoors walking, I'm not going to wear a mask. Why are we revisiting it? Things have changed. Things have really changed. And it's been 4 months and we need to reflect that. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. You know, I think, John, you bring up a great point about the metrics that we used when we went into this a month later, so we could really no longer access that information easily. And so kind of what we put in place didn't really apply in the same way, or it made it really difficult for us to apply you know, those metrics, and it was really frustrating. You know, I've vacillated on this for the last 10 days, every 30 minutes. You know, it's like what we saw in the survey results, and we can talk about surveys some other day. I wish we would just quit doing those until we actually learn how to do one. But it was no surprise, because that's exactly how I felt. Like, you know, I don't know. It's like, Carolyn, I think what you said too about keeping our students safe is vital. Absolutely. But there's also their mental health, and there's the mental health of their parents and our community. And people do have the option to wear a mask if they want to. It sounds like from some of the things that I'd heard, especially from our student president too, that it's like, gosh, maybe for some of the kids that, or many of the kids, maybe half of the kids that are gonna want to, or that want to continue to wear masks, maybe we should have some training for them so that they can protect themselves in a way that's actually effective. But you know, for the students that don't want to be in a classroom at all with unmasked people, we do have options there too. They're not great, right? We have independent study that I think they could opt into. Is that correct, Dr. Porras?
The independent study program still exists. We don't have that direct partnership anymore, but they can still enroll.
It's not ideal. And I think we need to examine that moving forward to find a way for that to be a better option than I think that it is right now. But again, it's an option, and we could improve it. But you know, I think about the health, and I think about the safety of our kids. I think about what I see here in the audience right now, and it worries me a little bit when I look out there and I see what I see in the community with you know, the fervor against masking. It frightens me. And so, you know, again, you can wear one if you want. And if you don't want to, you don't have to, but asking people or forcing people to wear a mask, it's starting to feel a little scary. I did want to personally thank and call out Mr. Cohen and Ms. Ford and Ms. Jessica, because I know where your position is on the mask, but you came to a meeting tonight knowing that there was still a mask order in force or in place, and you wore a mask. And I think that was really great, because there are a lot of people that came to this meeting tonight knowing that was, or that they thought masks would be required, and they felt safe coming there because those masks would be worn. So thank you for doing that, even though your position is different. That's all I got.
Okay. I want to say that I've spent hours and hours over the last week with letters. I mean, there were mirroring the speakers tonight. The letters were thoughtful, in depth, and people really pouring their hearts, thoughts, and opinions into the letters. So I want to thank people for that. I also want to thank people for coming here tonight and sharing, whether a parent or not. People are passionate about this. I feel like right now we are not in sync. I respect the idea of safety, but no other district is doing this. We cannot honestly believe, well, we're the only ones who really care about our kids. All these other elected officials obviously don't because they disagree with me. We're not in sync with the public. I just flew to Hawaii and back, and there are masks, but lots don't not. I'm in restaurants, I'm out, I'm in movie theaters, and they're just, it's not what it was a long time ago. So yes, things have changed. I think they've changed a lot. I think the advent of the booster's big. I don't want to hear that people don't want to get boosted, but expect everybody in the universe to be in a mask. I don't think that's right, but I think every parent and family gets to choose, do I want to do this or do I not? I've read 70 to 82% of us have had it, and a lot of us don't even know we've had it, but we've had it. I just think one of the speakers tonight said mask for the year. Where does it end? That's my question. What are the next steps? Do we do this, which I find personally excruciating? I kind of rather give birth to another child than have another meeting like this. So do we do it in a month, or maybe at the quarter, maybe at the semester? I am with Mr. Paff. I don't think it's going away. I think it's here. I hear it's here. I heard Fauci say it's here in the last week. I got a lot of respect for him. It's just going to be around. I also want to say that having been a substitute for 15 years, I certainly know a lot about being a substitute teacher. I do not want to ask students to wear a mask because we may have a sub shortage. That to me is, we can't do that. We've got two ways of going. One is we force people, and half the people are very unhappy with what we're doing, and we stick with the mandate. The other option is that if you don't want to, you don't. And we will look to families respectfully, and you get to determine within your family for your child, for their well-being, whatever their circumstances are, how you as a family want to proceed. And there's nobody I'm hearing who's not wearing a mask who says, you know, take your mask off. You have no right to that mask. So there's, to me, an inconsistency. I feel strongly that it's time for us to let people do what they want to do, let them make their choice. And I do think communication, connection, we keep talking social, emotional health. I have a master's in marriage, family, and child counseling from a long time ago. That's why it's called what I just said. But the connection between human beings is affected. So we have to look at that too, not just numbers, but connections, and little kids learning to talk and read expressions and know what's going on. And at my age, I can't hear half of what people are saying because I can't see their lips. I don't know what's going on. So I would like to say that for me, I am in no way comfortable saying to everybody, you're going to wear a mask from now on, not with the booster, not with the change, the flattening out as far as the severity of the cases. And I just think it's going to go on. And I just hope we can resolve this tonight. And I want to go back as a board to thinking about education, about staffing, about programs within our districts, and not divisive things with this group against that group. I'd like to just kind of be done and let everybody do what they need to do. So I think we need to take a vote right about now. Anything else?
Did Frank have further comments?
Do you want to say more comments? That's true. You were forming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never given.
I keep
birth
saying to
to a-
Frank, you wanted to be on the board. This is what you get.
Yeah.
This is it right here.
Yeah, I've never given birth to a child, nor will I ever. But
Yeah,
this-
okay.
but
It's
this
easier
is
than
very
this.
painful. This is definitely very painful. I respect everyone's comments. Thank you all. And I know things have changed. There has been, new variants. There's been more vaccines, more vaccine availability. The one thing that gets stuck in my mind is the one thing that has not changed is, what do you do with a student who gets it? Send them home for a minimum of 5 days. And what does that do to the family members as well? I mean, that might mean like a parent that has to stay home as well. That's just what's stuck on my mind. And I do appreciate Trustee Path, about going from the pandemic to the endemic. I mean, when is this going to end? You know, I'm tired. I'm so tired. Like, as one parent mentioned, like, I don't want my kid to have to wear a mask. Yeah, I could see you have a comment, another comment.
This is where our advocacy to our students really makes sense. My policy at work is not that you go home for 5 days. And we're adults, so the number's a number. But if you have a no fever or a very low fever, you come in masked. And if you feel okay, even though you've tested positive, you may work. And this is a very rational, reasonable policy, and it's very reasonable to think. And this is where we need to advocate, quite frankly, for our students to have that same ability and whatever, you know, and go back to the CDPH and say, look, you know, yes, we don't want somebody transmitting, but at the same time, we don't want them out sitting in their room like my son was when he had it, basically doing nothing because he was told he couldn't leave. But he was fine. He was okay, you know. And right now, 3 out of 5 family members have had this. Tom could have gone back the very next day with a K95, and he was okay. And that's what we have to advocate for our students to be able to do, is to come back into the educational setting as if this is endemic.
I have a comment. Christy, may I?
Of course.
Thank you. You know, one thing I was thinking about is we currently, with the current mask mandate, but it sounds like the majority of you are going to vote against that. And so I'm thinking next steps. And I remember when we shifted from mask mandate to strongly recommended, what that did was it really put, everyone just heard no more masks. Do you guys remember that? And parents were saying, can we please communicate more strongly that it's strongly recommended versus no more masks? And so what ended up happening was kids came, and at first there was maybe, you know, half or 3/4 of the class had masks on, and then it was half, and then it was less and less. And I've heard that from staff, and Ralph, please correct me if I'm wrong, if that somehow isn't what happened. But because of the kind of peer pressure, kids were kind of taking their masks off, even though maybe their families were sending them in. And there wasn't really a way for teachers to track that, especially at the elementary level. And so what I'm curious about, you know, even when we had this mask mandate in, we allowed for doctor's notes, doctor exemption forms. And so what I'm curious about is if we can, the wording of this, if what we can say is we are mandating masks, however, if you have a doctor's exemption form or a parent's exemption form, you don't have to wear a mask. And that shift in wording actually, to me, will make, I know it will make a difference for my student. I can imagine that her seeing the majority of other kids wearing masks or not, if their parent has exempted them, or their doctor has exempted them, that will make a difference to her, because we do all learn from our peers. And I think that we would have, I think there's a contingent of folks in our district who are indifferent. And I think they might be like, okay, it's a mask mandate. You know, we're trusting the schools, we're trusting our instincts. If we don't want to have a mask, we will send in this form. And it also, like I said, allows the teachers to be able to kind of to track that and feel more comfortable that they're doing what the families want. So that's my idea.
All right. Anybody else have anything to say at this time? I mean, okay. I think we have to handle, you're talking about next step things. I mean,
I'm talking about tonight.
Right now.
We essentially, what we do is because it sounds like what I'm hearing from the board is we want to kind of reduce, we want to step back. We've taken away, or we're not supporting, CDPH is not supporting pooled testing, so we don't have pooled testing in schools anymore. And I don't know why they did that. I don't know if it's because it wasn't used, or I don't know why. But so tonight, what I'm saying is we can vote to have the mask mandate. However, there's 2 options to opt out. You can have a doctor's note or a parent's note. And then the wording is more along the lines of what the health professionals are saying, because the health professionals are strongly recommending that we have masks. they're strongly recommending that when it's at a high level like it is, that we continue to mask. And so that's what I'm saying. Does that make
Okay,
sense?
I just need to respond. I'm not interested in that. I'm trying to think of the bureaucracy of trying to have notes and this one can and this one can't, and policing running around seeing who's doing what. I think tonight what we're talking about is either the mandate stays in place or it does not. That's where I think we are. I do not have an interest in going in the direction you're alluding to at this time. Anybody else?
Well, I think it would just, I get it. And I think it would be still very difficult. It's like I'm imagining the teachers with the list of who's supposed to have a mask and who's not, and having to police that. And I wish it was easy to do something like that. I don't see it being easy. So it's, if there was a better idea of how to do something like that, I think I could get behind it, but I just don't see it right now. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay, can we take a vote on what we're talking? Did you want to say anything else? I want to make sure.
No, I'm good, thank you.
You're good right now?
I do want to just add one thing before we go to a vote, because I know everybody knows this is hard. And there's going to be a vote in a minute here, and it's going to go one way or the other. And there's a lot of people online watching too. And, it's been a really hard couple of years for everybody. This isn't a football game. It's real life stuff. And there are going to be some people that feel like they won or they lost. I'd like for our vote to take place and for everybody to, it's like, okay, that's fine. I really don't like the cheering and the applause. It makes it feel like some kind of game.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
It makes it feel like we're against each other, and I want us to be in this together. So that's it.
Well, and I think you bring up a very good point that at the end of it, every board member is doing what they think is the best thing. It's like parents, right? Even as we grow up and realize they're not quite as perfect as we thought when we were little. And you realize that every parent is just doing the best job that we can. So right now, I feel like we're trying to be the parents and making decisions that are far reaching, and every person sitting here has approached this thoughtfully and like yourselves over years of where we stand and what our thoughts are. So I appreciate it. And I think you bring up a very good point. Thank you for saying that. All right. Are we ready to move forward?
I make a motion, we remove our current policy and replace it with one where masks are highly recommended starting as of tomorrow morning.
Seconded. Motion was made by trustee Paff, seconded by trustee Dawson. May we have a roll call vote? Aye.
Nay.
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
The losing of the mask mandate wins 3-2. Obviously, the vote represents that it is a tough decision, and we want to thank everybody for being here. And this will go into effect as of tomorrow. And we'll just cheer in our hearts or feel bad in our little spirits as well. But thank everybody for being here tonight. Everybody online, we can't see you, but we appreciate your thoughts and your comments and your opinions. Thank you, everybody, for being here.